it's the end of August, which means that I've just finished my first month in Uganda. Wow, that went so quickly. Here's a quick video to kind of summarize what's been happening and some of the highlights of the last month in Uganda. So we started off the journey together, the three of us, so me, my mum and my godmother Christine, and we enjoyed the flight. Things went quite smoothly and we were really thankful to be landing in Uganda after a quick stopover in Doha. So when we reached Uganda, it takes a long time to travel over to Rukungiri, where I will be staying. So we stopped off in a place called Masaka. The first thing you see when you head into Rukungiri is the Rukungiri Community Church, which is my new home church, which is such a blessing to see as the first thing you come into the area. And my house is situated just behind the church, so it was a very short journey up to the house. When I arrived, I was greeted by some wonderful friends, Emily and Alfred. They both live in Uganda, and they greeted me with a cake. They'd been preparing the house for when I arrived, and it was so wonderful to sit down and eat cake and enjoy the first moments of living in my home with them. We had a lot of downtime to rest and re-energize after quite a long flight and a long journey here. We had some challenges which I honestly believe God put in place to see how we'd all react to them. So we had our water stop in the house, which I'd never experienced before in this house, and we also had some challenging things with the garden, with bamboo falling on the house. Both of these issues were resolved quite quickly by the help of friends. Our friend Jonas, who is a motorbike driver but also runs a shop in town and is also part of an NGO that works with sponsoring children. He came to the house, was quick to sort out the bamboo tree and to help us get jerry cans. The water supply had gone off just because it's been a dry season in Uganda recently, so the tanks are quite empty. But we started praying for water to return to the house, and before we knew it, there were many rainstorms coming our way. So we used pots and pans to collect up water. It's not the way we wanted to resolve the situation, but God had given us water, so we were going to use it. I feel really blessed in these moments, honestly, because what I thought would stress me out and worry me about living in Uganda, it seems to bring me a lot of peace at the moment. So challenges like not having water or the electricity going, which happens quite often, it doesn't feel like a problem. It feels quite natural and normal, which is totally God, because that's not something I've grown up with. So therefore I just feel God has really blessed me with peace. So my move here, my transition into living into Uganda has become so much easier than I ever expected, than my mum ever expected. And I was really thankful for this, because it made me really sure I needed to be here to follow what God was asking of me. So living in Rukungiri has incredible upsides. We're in a beautiful part of Uganda that's full of green land and beautiful farming areas, but also is near a place called Lake Bunyoni. Lake Bunyoni is a beautiful deep lake with many islands on it. So I took Mum and Christine to my favourite island. And we stayed in a bird's nest. It was called the Kingfisher's Nest, and it really lived up to that expectation. There was a kingfisher that would visit the nest every day, sit on the end of the diving board and go collect its food. And that was a joy to watch and just to enjoy and experience God's creation and nature in such a unique way. So that was a really peaceful retreat for all of us, and I just love being able to show Mum and Christine some of my favourite places in Uganda. Also, while in Uganda, although we spent a lot of time preparing the house, organising things here, we also got to have some lovely visits. We had the bishop come round, we had some friends visit us with their children, we got to host a lot of dinners, and we also got to see some really special friends, including Christine's sponsor child called Venita, who came to the house for a visit with the sponsor charity. And then of course we got to visit the twins at their home. For those of you, some of you will know their story and why we've known them since birth, and it was just a joy to see them really grown up and come into their own, speaking English, doing so well in school, and enjoying life with lots of bubbles. So the reason that I'm in Uganda is to work with Amaziba Ministries. I'm based at Rukungiri Community Church. So I took Mum and Christine down to the church, which is on the bottom of the hill from where I live. So it's quite a steep drive. You have to walk down. But Mum and Christine did a great job navigating that road and not falling over. We had no one fall over, so that was really wonderful. And once we arrived at church, then we got to experience the wonderful children's ministry that's happening there, the amount of children that can pray for themselves and have an independent relationship with Jesus to their parents, and enjoy time with God, enjoy worship, being led by wonderful children's workers. And between the morning church services, there is a 30-minute gap where they do a foundation class. So for the children, this is another teaching session. And for the adults and the young people, this is a Bible study where they can talk about a certain topic and receive advice and have an open discussion about these areas of the Bible that can be a bit more tricky and that are specific to the stage of life that that person is experiencing. Mum did a great job with the children, teaching them sign language about the Trinity, which was such a joy for me to watch. To see her doing what she does in the UK in a Ugandan context was such a blessing to see. And of course we got to join in and really enjoy the church services. That it includes a lot of dancing. You'll see me dancing like a bit of a fool. But we have so much fun at these services, and it was really nice to experience them, but also be prayed for and invited to introduce myself in these services. And before we knew it, it was the end of the 2 weeks of Mum and Christine being in Rukungiri. So we headed back on the long adventure back to the airport. I was really blessed to have my friend Ellie, who's the youth worker and youth leader, to come and join us on this trip and drive us so I could say goodbye to Mum at the airport. Goodbyes are really hard, and I know it was really difficult for Mum to leave me behind in Uganda, but instead of thinking that she's left me behind somewhere, actually she's pushed me forward into the future of what God has for me, and I am so thankful for that, and feel so blessed that I have such a supportive mum encouraging me to make this step out in my faith. So then I came home, and there was more issues with the house. Yet again, I think God just seeing how I do and how I'd manage the house on my own, and was dealt with very quickly and easily. Of course, it was a spectator sport, so I had all the local children come visit the house as I chopped down one of the big trees. And when I say I mean I got help doing that. The reason being was that the big tree in my garden is a big avocado tree, and it's actually unsafe at the moment because it's so tall that if the avocados fell down, they could hurt someone and kill someone. And we don't want that, and I want this house to be used for ministry work, so therefore I asked Jonas if he could arrange for the tree to be chopped down on the side where the garden is, so people would be safe in the garden. So we did that, and it was quite an experience, and we ended up with a great harvest of avocados at the end. Jonas also taught me some tricks about how to look at avocados and see when they're ripe and which ones are the good ones, including how to recognize which ones are the babies and which ones are the adults, because you don't want to eat the babies. And apparently the babies are very shiny, so I learned how to avoid the babies and throw the babies away and just keep the adult avocados to eat, and to shake them to see if they're ready, which you can hear if they are. That was a great experience. Learning how to be Ugandan, definitely, that was one for the bucket list. So once the house was then ready, I started my first day with Amaziba Ministries. I went to a pastoral meeting with all the pastors and learnt about the different areas of ministries going on, and then was invited to go and join in with these ministries. So the first ministry I got to be a part of was the Outreach Evangelism Ministry. So I got invited to join the team going out into one of the more rural areas of Rukungiri to evangelize and invite people to learn more about Jesus. This wasn't to bring them into our church, because actually our church was quite far away from this area, so it's not practical to be telling them to come to our church. But it was just to do with Jesus. It was just telling them about why we believe in him and the testimonies we have of God's goodness over our lives, and then encouraging them to be a part of that and to have a personal relationship with God through Jesus Christ. We encountered many people walking the streets who stopped and would sit and listen to us talking, which was really humbling, because I don't know, I think sometimes we get that imposter syndrome where we think that people won't want to hear our stories, and actually that's not true at all. People do, and we have to really step out and be bold because people want to listen. And I was really encouraged by that and learnt a lot about how to share my faith with people, including some really special experiences. One was that I met a lady called Rhonda and her baby, and I was absolutely overjoyed to sit with her as she accepted Jesus as her Lord and Saviour. And I got to pray for her and her baby. While she was feeding her baby, I actually got to pray over both of them, over protection for their lives and for the journey that God was going to then do with her. It was so special and unique, and I'll never forget it. We also, while we were preaching on the roads, we had a group of young children stood there watching us from afar. They didn't want to join because we were actually talking to a load of adults, and in Uganda there is a hierarchy in age. But once we'd finished with the adults, we walked over to them and we said, "We saw that you were watching us, and we want to tell you that we're not just here for your parents, we're not just here for the adults, but we're here for you too. We want to tell you stories about this God we know, and see if you would like to accept this God into your heart." And these young people were so responsive and so excited, and it was such a blessing to then be with them and pray with them as they accepted Jesus into their hearts. It will be an experience I will never forget. It massively grew my confidence in evangelism. I think when I see people doing evangelism on the streets in the UK, I think I could never do that. I'm not brave enough. Actually, being forced into it in Uganda, I realised that it's a lot more simple than we make it to be. You've just got to share your heart and explain why you chose to do this with your life, and that speaks to people more than you will ever know. Your testimony is really important, and God gave it to you for a reason. So I learned how to share it well. So being a part of Amaziba Ministries, I've joined as an assistant youth pastor, which is really exciting because I get to work with young people in the church every day, whether that's choir rehearsals, whether that's their fellowship on a Saturday, lots of different things we get to do with the youth, and of course Sunday services where we get to teach them. This also includes taking the youth to different conferences that are happening. So there was a youth conference that was happening, one of the partner churches to our church about half an hour away. So we went to that church and had a wonderful time. We had a preacher from the UK who lived in Uganda, had moved to the UK and then had gone back to Uganda. He was incredible. He was so inspiring. He uplifted the youth, encouraged them in their faith, and shared the book of Daniel to encourage them to step out from the crowd, to when they're in school, which they go back to in 2 weeks' time, to step out in their faith and to look different and act different to their peer group. I thought it was really wonderful. The youth were really responsive. Quite a few of our youth went up for prayer ministry at the end, which was really such a blessing to see them really respond in this way. And I also got to network and have some wonderful conversations with those pastors who led the conference, which was a great time. So encouraging to see what people are doing for Jesus, and how inspiring they are and how much they inspire me to keep pursuing God daily, and not just for myself, but to then be a witness to these young people. So that's the end of this video. I thank you so much for listening and joining in. Oh, and the power's just gone. Welcome to Uganda. That's a perfect note to end this video on. Thank you so much for being a part of this journey, and if you want to know more, then follow me on Instagram, where I post things more daily about what I'm experiencing in Uganda. And if you'd like to become a prayer partner, then I'd love you to join the WhatsApp group we have going on. This is where I put daily updates about the life of the church, what I'm experiencing and what I'd like prayer over. So if you'd like to join me in that way and be one of my prayer partners, you are so welcome, and that would be such a blessing. So send me a message and we'll get you set up. And that's it for now. Bye, folks.